Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah McIntyre. How are you doing? And here we have our long awaited second part to my interview with Jeni Juranics about the physical mediumship fraud that she experienced and the impact of that on her. I hope you love it. Let me know your thoughts. And as always, you can submit questions. I'm hoping to have Jeni back on to answer your questions by emailing podcast@hannahmedium.co.uk. And so going to like a ports because I'd never heard of them until I listened to Fake Psychic podcast, and he was talking in that about how they would break into people's homes and steal things for them to be able to be. But an apport is just an object that has a connection to somebody appearing in the space,
Again, it
physically
depends
man.
on yeah, it depends on who you're sitting with. I've sat with a few that bring through apports, and I have a whole collection of them in my jewelry box. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but they're there for history of, my journey. So, it could be anything from uh, a gem, something that could be made into a necklace. It could be a ring that was clearly somebody's ring. So, imagine going to a pawn shop and there's a whole cabinet of just rings, all different ages and,
Yeah.
designs. It would be as if you took a tray from the flea market and dumped it in a bag. Sometimes that's just my description to help people
No, I
understand.
get it. Because there's well, this is the thing, isn't it? I've got my pointy finger out because there is. I bet you there's nothing in there of real value. And this is my thing because somebody said to me, when I first did my physical mediumship, is it real? Conversation on my podcast, somebody emailed me and said, yeah, but look at this guy. And it was some lunatic man who was putting plastic gems under his eyelids and then squeezing them out.
Yes.
Like, and I just, if spirit could create, why wouldn't they create a giant diamond so that none of us ever needed to charge for readings because we had enough money and we could help the people that really need it?
Yeah.
Why would they give us something that is valueless? And this is why I don't get invited, Jeni.
Yeah, I've
I
met that person and I've been about, this far away from that person pushing small little chips of gemstones. And really he's put them in there ahead of time and he's pushing them out. But
I
there are
mean,
going to be people.
conjunctivitis.
Yeah.
Imagine explaining that to your optician.
Yeah. 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 Well, so these apports they're to me it's a form of love bombing. If you imagine you're going to go to this gathering, and hopefully someone in spirit is aware that you've decided to go that night, and maybe you're going to get a gift, maybe you're going to leave, because I've been to seances where people said, have you sat with this person before? And I've said yeah, and they said, what'd you get? It's like, I'm not here for the gems, I'm here to connect with spirit, but a small blue stone, like, so there is a love bombing aspect to it, because some of the things that come through could just be meaningless, beautiful, fancy things, but sometimes it is a piece of art, or so precipitated spirit art is what they call it, where it might be a printout of one of your deceased loved ones' faces. That, all of the ones that I have seen from the person I met and exposed can easily be found publicly on someone's Facebook page. So imagine taking a picture off of your Facebook page, printing it out on a 8 by 8.5 by 11 sheet of printer paper, and scribbling on it with crayons, crumpling it up. And when the lights come on at the end of the seance, here's this piece of paper. Oh, there's an apportation for someone. Open it up. Oh my gosh, that's my loved one. And so that form of it's heartbreaking to
Yeah,
imagine
it
that
is.
please just give me a sign, please just give me a message, bring me a piece of evidence so that I know you're with me. This is what people are going there for.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And people want to be seen desperately. I mean, that question, what did you get? That wanting to be recognized, wanting to be seen by spirit, wanting the acknowledgement. Like, I can understand, because I see those things in myself. I can understand people having those desires.
Yeah.
It's brutal,
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah.
And so you realized it was fraud, were very brave. It, it was a wonderful thing to watch. And I know it cost you a lot, and I know it was hard, but you shared your story. You took down your podcasts where you were talking about him and publicizing him and your experiences, and you shared it. And then you've had some great people who have come and also shared their experiences with it. But you've had some backlash too, haven't you?
Yeah, a little bit. I wouldn't say that it was anything that I didn't expect. I very much expected people to try to defend him or any physical medium, because one thing I want to say is I've exposed one person, but I've sat
Yes.
with five. And so I'm speaking about all of them here. So just so everyone knows, bits and pieces are from many different experiences with
Yeah.
five different people. But the one person that I did expose, because he does have a very cult-like following, there were a lot of people who, rightly so, defended him, and I always compare this to if I were to put something up, say on my Facebook page, that someone's claiming I did something, I know there would be a lot of people without question that would support me just simply because they've had one positive experience with me. And so I
Mm.
understand that. But frustratingly, despite the mounting evidence that this one person is a fraud, and then the hundreds of stories that came to me through email that, I caught this person, but I believe this person. And the next email would be the opposite. I caught this person, but I believe this person. And so that there's just a big web of lies and stories. But the most, I think, eye-opening part of the backlash of the attacks towards me for speaking up would be around um, mediums who are associated or in support, who would prefer to continue being in support and associated with this person versus really actually looking at the evidence and saying, you know what, maybe I was wrong, like I did. Right. And I know that not everybody wants to do that, but it is the right thing to do. Even if, even if you still want to believe, I think it's important that you look at the evidence without just dismissing it. And a lot of people did that. A lot of people just dismissed it immediately. And
That I
so,
can understand. If you feel like you've got a message from your much beloved son
yeah,
who you've been waiting to hear from, you will fight for that. I
yeah.
mean, it's kind of funny because when I think I was 11, I got in fisticuffs on the playground with Kristen Marshall because she said Father Christmas was not real. And I was furious. And the reason I was furious is because when I was very small, my birthday's Christmas Day. When I was very small, I'd woken up Christmas morning and I had seen Father Christmas with my eyes. Now, my mum and dad cannot believe that I fell for it because he had a rolled out roll of cotton wool. They hadn't got a beard. And I made him drink the sherry. And my dad says that he drank it and the beard got really heavy and moved. And he had to go, bye now, little girl, and leave because this sellotape to his face, cotton wool beard was falling off. Now, it's very sweet. Of course, it's very sweet but I, from that moment on, I was a devotee. I
Mhm.
didn't have any doubt in my mind that that was real because I had seen it, and seeing is believing. And that's kind of what this reminds me of. I remember coming home from school and the school had rung my parents because I'd got really eggy about this, in defense of Father Christmas because he sees everything. And they had to sit me down and I can remember being like, what? And then, I remember going up the stairs and having this moment and turning halfway up the stairs, very dramatic, and saying, I suppose the tooth fairy's not real either. And they both went and did this sad face. And I went, "Ah," and my whole world just crumbled. Like, and I know we're laughing, but I can understand having a whole belief system of magic and not wanting that to crumble. There were plenty of signs that Father Christmas wasn't real. I better put a disclaimer on this podcast so no one listens with children in the car. But there were plenty of signs, but I just turned away.
Yeah.
And it's,
And that's been going on, like, let's be clear here, for over 100 years with physical mediumship. This isn't just a resurgence of let's mess around and experiment in seances. This is a story that has been perpetuated by people just like little Hannah that wanted to believe in Father
yeah,
Christmas. And so that simply just is all it is. I know that there are people who the red flags are there. It comes down to wanting to believe, and I think that that is somewhat an innocent thing, but if an influential person, or if someone who is seen as a mediumship mentor or somebody who has students, if they're perpetuating that story, it's damaging for so many reasons. Another aspect to this is the trance guides that speak through these so-called mediums, and the guidance and information that they're apparently channeling and bringing in, around things like World War III, or mental health conditions. One example is one of the people on YouTube has a trance demonstration where his guide Abraham has come in. He's a healer. He knows all things about the human body and can give whatever solid advice that people think is much better than seeking actual help.
yeah,
So one of the questions that someone posed in one of these live talks was, can psychopathy be healed? And I'm not a psychologist, I'm not an expert, but I'm pretty sure that the evidence so far suggests that if we could, we would have figured that out by
yeah,
now so that we stop having serial killers. But the answer, I'm sorry, this is taking a dark turn, but this is how damaging it is,
yeah,
because the answer was yes. With a diet change and getting to the root problem in childhood, it probably goes back to childhood. And so change the diet. And what worries me about these types of things coming in from an all-knowing spiritual guide who has the answers beyond what science has been able to prove so far. This is like, if it's coming from spirit, it must be true. That's damaging, because let's say that's a wife who has an abusive husband and he's a psychopath.
yeah.
And she thinks, if I
Just give
just
him
feed
some
him better.
celery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just up his 5 a day.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah. So that's the seriousness,
Yeah,
actually, of
absolutely.
of these individuals who claim to have an all-knowing special guide that works only with them, who was an expert in life, who, has continued on into the spirit world to complete their mission and to continue to help humanity. That's that's really scary to me.
Yeah.
And then also the other aspect is the psychic surgery. I mean, I could talk about this for hours, Hannah. I'm sure you've heard of psychic surgeons,
Yeah, I know, it just makes me laugh.
you
But
know?
I mean, and there's something in it, just like there's something in placebos. If
Yeah.
you believe that it will fix you, in some cases it will. But
Mhm.
as anybody that's watched Apple Cider Vinegar on Netflix will know, and you can meditate some things away. Belief systems are great, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes they
Yeah.
don't work.
Yeah.
So so first question I want to ask you. 5 mediums you said you saw do different forms of physical mediumship. Do you believe they were all fake?
Yes.
Every single one?
100% yes.
Oh my God. Okay. Do you believe that physical mediumship is possible?
I have, and this is something I have not ventured into speaking about publicly, Hannah, because so much of the backlash was also about me being jealous, me wishing I could create the same materializations and have the same success as a physical medium. So I haven't talked about it. And it's, I'm kind of getting ready to be able to talk about some of the experiences that I have had while experimenting with spirit. But let's say, first of all, we have to understand when else, whether you're a medium or not, when else do you gather with 15, 20, 30 people, sit in a room with beautiful music on, hold hands, and create a positive environment and invite your loved ones to come in? When
Mm.
else are we doing that? The closest we would get would be one of our demonstrations, right? Where
Yeah.
we're on the stage. I don't know anybody else who regularly does that. So, unfortunately, these seances are one of the few times that people are gathering with that intent. And
Mhm.
so, given that we know our loved ones are always with us, they will always show up when we ask. In those seances, there is a sense of spirit
Of course,
because we're
'cause they're
doing
there.
that.
Yeah.
And then there are things that happen to us that we can't explain in life, you know? I like haunted houses, paranormal activity. Things happen. And so when you put those two kind of belief systems together and the intention to invite spirit, I think things are possible. But unfortunately, so much of this nonsense and fraud has made it extremely challenging for anybody to sit and do that without kind of being tainted by the damage that's already
Yeah.
been done. And so, but you hear over and over again, it just needs to be done in a new way. We need to find a new way to do it. And so every time I hear one of these people that I've exposed say that, what that really means is I need to find a better way of defrauding people.
Yeah.
New tricks, new tactics, new
Tricks. Yeah. I
explanation.
mean, can't use that mask again because you've shared the mask all over social
Yeah,
media. Gonna have to
yeah,
find another ugly mask to use. What are we
yes,
gonna do now?
yeah,
You've totally buggered. Think what's gone into the budget now on the new mask.
yeah,
You're awful.
yeah,
And but because when I first started my mediumship journey and I sat in a circle, which is probably the only place, a spiritual development circle, you might get that kind of energy.
yeah,
I did see the teacher totally changed. And I was like a cartoon character, rubbing my eyes and opening them again. But she did not say, "Look at me, everybody." We were all supposed to be meditating. The only reason I opened my eyes is because I choked on my own dribble. Classy. But because I did that, I got to see it and I got to see that spirit for a long time. This wasn't a look, go, they've gone. I watched that spirit talk. But I've never seen anything quite like that. I've seen some spirit faces. I've seen lots of transfiguration because I love transfiguration. But the affidavit on that is always it might not work. And I think that's part of the problem is that physical mediumship, when you're paying for an event, you've got to give the goods. And it's hard to go, no, it didn't work today, guys. The energy was off. I just didn't have it. Buy when you're charging for it and your whole,
yeah,
it's a difficult space, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And that's never happened.
Yeah.
I've been to countless seances, and there's never been a time that it didn't work.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, like my last retreat, the Ouija board, because I love a Ouija board, it worked for the first link and then it stopped working. And we
yeah,
just had to give up with it because it was
yeah,
just was and I was saying to them that's how it goes because that is
yeah,
how it goes sometimes. But when you've got people flying in, you've kind of added this level of stuff which is makes it problematical if you fail.
yeah.
I
And I think
also want to talk go on, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say real quick, I think that's another one of the perpetuating stories that needs to stop is that, they were very genuine at first. The materializations were real, the energy was high, and miraculous things were happening, but they got greedy and had to
Yes.
start thinking. And this other explanation of mixed mediumship where, this is real, but this isn't. And they're just trying to fluff up their seance by
Yeah.
adding this. That's not okay. That's not, I relate that to if you and I were having a rough day and we Googled one of our sitters before a reading and
Yeah,
just, oh, just today I'm tired, but I really need the money. I'm just going to Google one person
I
and
know.
just
And we
find
never
their
would.
gonna find one of their, obituary, and, we would never, ever accept
Never,
that.
never.
So let's stop.
Absolutely. And I do think that part of this is the institutions, and you might not want to delve into this, but Lilydale is the star of the show in Fake Psychic podcast from years ago.
No, it's Camp Chesterfield.
Oh, Camp Chesterfield. Okay. So
Yeah.
Lilydale, I've heard some stuff about then.
Yes.
And obviously they must know that he is
Oh, yeah.
fraudulent. But I also have a friend that goes to Lilydale and demonstrates, who I know is a phenomenal ethical medium who never fakes it. So if I just don't understand. It's the same with AFC. Like that, I don't know if you've heard my podcast, but somebody sent in a load of stuff about Gordon Higginson being fraudulent to me, which, these are copies of reports that were submitted by SNU members to the chair
Mhm.
saying this is fraud. And I have to say, all you need to do is Google Gordon and look at his Wikipedia. He's obviously doing fraud in his physical mediumship there. There's no way on God's green earth that anything that comes from spirit looks like you're throwing up Hessian cloth.
Yeah.
No. So we know that, but they're still perpetuating and putting these people front and center. And that surely, I don't understand how you can believe in spirit and believe in good mediumship. I've had, this phenomenal mediumship I've seen at Arthur Findlay College, but then they've got a, like, where's the line? And I
Yeah.
think that the institutions should do better with
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah. So I know that Arthur Findlay College has, I mean, there's what public is supposed to believe and what the truth is always very different with these institutions. But on paper, they don't do dark seances
No.
at the college anymore. Lilydale has banned dark seances as well, but I know that some are happening in private residences. And so, they
That's interesting.
publicly.
So they are. So they've, Lilydale, since you went, have stopped.
No, not since I went. So here's the tricky part. They found a workaround. You can have a workshop in one of the buildings at Lilydale in the light because it's in the light. So you can
Yeah.
go there and talk about physical mediumship all you want. But the seances that I attended, and I'm happy we're clearing this up, were not on Lilydale grounds. They were
Okay.
14 minutes down the road in a private residence of a man who's very much connected to Lilydale. So it was like workshops during the day, and then you go to this guy's house at night, and he hosts all of them for a number of years. And I think yeah, I could talk so
I
much about
still
that as
think it's just it's a really problematical thing generally to have somebody teaching at your space
yeah,
who is widely accepted to be a fraud,
yeah,
and it doesn't take, you're not having to deep dive into the dark side of the internet to find this information out.
yeah,
It's there.
yeah,
And I just think it's really damaging, because I know I get more abuse online than you do, but I know you have your fair share. But part of the problem with that is this ridiculous kind of culture of putting fraudulent stuff front and center. Whereas you would think logically you would move away from it. The Catholic Church, when someone's a pedo, they hide them.
yeah,
They don't bring them out to do mass. They don't go,
yeah.
well, who needs to do this really holy service? Let's get them in. And it just seems like a really big disconnect to me between, it's illogical.
Well, to me, that comes down to another big takeaway and big lesson for me. And it's something that I really am passionate about helping other people with now is that it comes down to the idea that another idea that's been perpetuated on is how a spiritual person acts. What makes you a spiritual person, what you can and cannot do. And it comes down to I don't want to speak up. I don't want to speak ill of somebody because I'm a spiritual person. And
Yeah.
and it's not kind. And whatever beliefs you're adhering to within being a spiritual person. That's what I heard over and over again. Spiritual people don't act like this. And by that, they meant me exposing
Yeah.
mental,
Yeah, just be quiet.
yeah,
Sorry, I didn't actually
mental,
mean be quiet, but I just mean, yeah, shush, be quiet.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
mental, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse that I've experienced in multiple seances with people who claim to be serving spirit. If I'm being attacked for not being spiritual enough, for being, whatever else they said about me, that I think is the main issue. And that's why
Yeah.
I think these institutions, spiritualists, let's not speak for all of them,
Yeah.
but it's a big trend that I've noticed. I don't consider myself a spiritualist. I never have. Thought about it for a bit, just like I'm sure you have, but it never worked for me because of things like that.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's the trouble with all religions, isn't it? I mean, I
yes.
use the Catholic Church as an example. It's that same thing. You put people between people and God, and there's
Yeah.
always going to be this power shift, this dynamic. So yeah, I think it's a real shame. I know obviously AFC have gone through some massive shifts and changes in their stuff. I mean, they have a little museum upstairs where you can go and look at photos, and a lot of the photos are photos of fraudulent mediumship,
Yeah.
tricks of photos and things like that. And I guess it's great that they're part of our history, but I wish they would be in the history and not constantly brought forward. And I love thinking about what is possible rather than
Mhm.
where we're at. Yeah, it's just a really interesting thing. And the gaslighting mind is so true. So I know I mentioned this to you before, and people who are listening to this episode will come out after me doing my deep dive into a reading I had recently with somebody who is on TikTok, 500,000 followers, really expensive readings, and is doing these clips where it is so the mediumship is so precise, it's so good, it's names, it's date, we're back to names and dates, that's where we always end up. Names and dates,
Mhm.
which is widely accepted to be the mastery of mediumship, even though we know that, for example, Gordon Higginson, who was really good with names and dates, liked to spend an hour before every dem in the records office, and famously gave an address from the phone book that was misprinted, and he gave the misprint from spirit and then said, oh, they're obviously acknowledging that. But so we take that as the pinnacle, and then people come to our shows and expect us to be able, they've seen that TikToker with their highly edited stuff. Where are you with your names? Where are you with this, that, and the other? And so spirit told me to book with her. Long story short, 17 names. Couldn't take them, could take one of the 17. um you know yeah, it was a really, really poor reading. So where do you think, like, because I can't work this out where I sit on this, it's moving all the time, but when you're representing yourself on social media and you're saying I'm able to do this and I can do this, and you're taking out your ums, your ers, your nos, your gaps, and you're making this fluid, amazing looking mediumship, is that fraud?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I think that's definitely misleading. I think that it
Yeah.
represents you in a light that isn't accurate, because we all know that mediumship is never 100%. We're never 100% accurate in
Yeah.
a reading. And I can see how the need to edit a video down to the 3-minute time frame, yeah, you do have to cut some things out, and that's why I generally don't have a lot of clips like that, because it's challenging to present a clip because you want people to get a taste of your work, right?
Yeah.
You want to offer that. So like, this is the type of medium I am. This is how I work. But yeah, I don't love that. I don't love
No.
when people, I've seen a lot of videos like that too, and it's cringy to me because I mean, why would for me, what makes me uncomfortable if I were to do that is when the person actually books with me and then I'm not like that. Like,
I
wouldn't
know.
you be embarrassed for your own self? Wouldn't you feel bad?
Well, I think. because I do a lot of mediumship teaching, and my rule, as my students know, because I roar it at them, is you only say yes, no, maybe, don't know. Don't give the medium, because it's nothing worse than when you're just about to say something and your sitter says it to you. So I've done that for years. So I'm very good at holding a kind of quiet space for a medium. And when I first went into the call with her, she said, "What have you booked today?" And I said, "A spirit link." And she went, "Oh, right. Are you sure you want a spirit link?" And I went, "Yes." And then there was this really long pause where I just thought she'd started. And then she went, "I'm just going to double check, because sometimes people want love readings or career readings, and that doesn't come with a spirit link." And I just said, "No, definitely spirit link." And then there was another really big pause. And it was my friend who said to me, "I bet you most people fill that with, 'I really want to hear from XYZ.
Yep.
I definitely want a spirit link because I need to hear from this person," which gives her some sort of framework, which is
Yep.
fine if you work, because I ask who people want to hear from when I'm doing one-on-ones, because it cuts to the chase. So I don't judge that. But it was definitely this kind of reaching fishing, which I'm so naive, as always. I hadn't really twigged that she was doing. I think you've helped me dodge a bullet, to be honest, Jenny, because I think what I'm so naive, I'd have been in there with the floating ping pong balls and the lubed up hand going, "Oh my God," the
Yeah.
printed pictures.
A lot of people. I mean, it is growing in popularity, the physical mediumship stuff right now, because I think that it's just mediumship is much more acceptable these days. We have to have appreciation for the mediums of the past who have made being a medium in 2025 much easier.
Yeah.
And so naturally people are just more comfortable with experimenting in weird things. So yeah, I hope that I helped a lot of people dodge a lot of bullets, because not only the abuse really that I suffered, even just financially, it's expensive, booking trips
Yeah.
outside of my country to go be with people who are just not good people. So, um yeah, I'm fascinated to hear more about that TikTok reader and your experiences. So I can't wait for that episode too. I'm sure it's
Yeah,
gonna be
good. Well, bless your heart. Well, I've kept you way longer than I said I would, so I apologize. This is definitely going to be a two-parter. But thank you for coming on and sharing. And obviously, people can listen to Spirit Call and hear all of the, because you went through it. I've been on that journey with you, and it was quite a journey. But also an amazing thing that you've done, because in speaking out, you've given a platform to other people to be able to speak out about their experiences with that person. And I still believe that something is possible, but I think it is more. You're right. We've got greedy with it. We've made it a demand rather than a lovely surprise, and that is problematical.
Yeah. Well, just for anyone listening who's interested, there's 8 episodes and they're kind of split up over time. So you have to go back to the first one and look for all of the follow-up episodes, because they came out over, I think, an 8-month period as I was
Yeah,
going through it in real time. Um, so, if nothing else, hopefully it's just a interesting story to listen to. But I beg anybody who is a medium, who is a teacher, who is a spiritual service provider of any kind, to either listen to my podcast or just do some research about what is out there and what people are claiming to be doing, because this is how stories get perpetuated, and this is how culty belief systems are created. And sometimes what you're believing here was actually created over here by a very bad person, and
yeah,
the good bits have stuck and become a new story. And so we need people to speak up and know where these stories and experiences came from. So
yeah,
whether it's through listening to my story or just researching and just being open and honest, if you're experiencing a red flag, if you're like, that don't seem right, say
mhm,
something. Speak up. As mediums, so many mediums are taught to be quiet because, oh, I don't know as much as my teacher, or I don't want to seem rude, or I don't want to seem like I'm challenging them. And that again comes back to how spiritual people act. and
mhm.
and you know how we don't speak up, and I just think that needs to change too. So, it's
Yeah.
inspired me to think about how can I use this in a positive way to change the mediumship landscape and the spiritual community landscape
I think
in the
you are.
future. So,
I think you are already changing it and shifting it. And if you're
hopefully.
not brave enough to speak up, I can understand that, but you
Yes.
don't need to keep paying for it. God,
Yeah.
if I'd heard someone say that when I was at the beginning of my journey, because I just believed that all of these people on pedestals were my only option. And
Yeah.
like you, invested a lot of money in people that ultimately broke my heart. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, if it's not right for you, if you feel like you're in a room with the cult, I don't know if I'd sit in a room with 20 people in a cult and go, here, excuse me, but I would remove myself. And you can
Yeah.
do that too.
Yep. Yep.
Well, it's been lovely to chat to you. Thank you so much for all your time. Sorry we went over. It's such a great story, though.
I could talk for hours more. So,
Yeah.
thanks, Hannah.
Thanks.